Julia was frantically searching for the diamond studs her father gifted her on her 28th birthday. She was sure that she had kept them in her vanity drawer last night before sleeping, but her husband, Justin, kept telling her that she had kept the studs in the bank locker. "No, Justin, I remember I kept them here after I came back from the dinner last week," she said while turning her room upside down to find the studs. "Julia, you wore some other earrings. All your diamond jewelry is in the bank, my dear. Maybe you forgot." Justin kept telling her the same thing since this morning. Julia was exhausted from searching, and she finally believed Justin. However, she constantly felt that her studs were with her and not in the bank. She finished her breakfast and switched on her laptop to start her work. Julia was the CEO of her digital marketing company. She had hired a remote team and worked with reputable clients in the USA and Europe. She had a few meetings to discuss the brand's social media campaigns. But throughout the day, her mind was constantly stuck on diamond studs. She tried her best to dismiss it and focus on her work. After completing her work, she came to her room to prepare for a tea party at her sister's place. She opened her closet to take out the green designer bag she gifted herself on her company's success. But she was stunned to see that her bag was missing. She checked every section of her closet, but the bag was nowhere to be found. "I kept it here and never used it," she thought. She picked up another handbag and left for her sister's place. Her mind was constantly racing and overthinking about today's events. "First my studs, and then my designer bag. I don't know what's happening," she thought to herself. Julia couldn't enjoy the party, so she left early for home. Justin saw her upset face and asked what was wrong. Julia told him about her missing studs and designer bag. "Julia, you never had any green bag, dear. What's happening to you?" Justin asked seriously. Julia looked at her husband's face and laughed. "Very funny, Justin. Stop kidding. I am telling you I kept the bag here and it's no longer there," she explained. Justin's expression remained unchanged. "Julia, I'm not kidding. You never had any green bag, dear. Maybe you are stressed about your work and it's affecting your memory," he replied sincerely. Julia was perplexed by Justin's remark. "How can you not remember my bag, Justin? I showed it to you." She persistently tried to make Justin believe her. "Julia, darling, you need to sleep. And tomorrow we are going to the doctor. You are making things up," Justin said. That night, Julia couldn't sleep. She doubted herself. "Is Justin right? Am I imagining things? I always wanted to buy that bag. Maybe I imagined that I had bought it?" She tossed and turned in the bed. The next morning, Julia woke up. Justin had left earlier and kept a note for her. "Hey, honey, left earlier for work and made some pancakes for you. Enjoy your breakfast. Love, Justin." Julia read the note and smiled. She enjoyed her breakfast and started her work. She called Justin and asked him if he was free for dinner tonight. Justin agreed, and they decided to go out to a fancy restaurant. Julia got ready and waited for Justin to come home, but he didn't come. Julia kept waiting and called him. "Justin, we had a date today. You forgot about it? When are you coming? I have made the reservation," she angrily asked. "What are you talking about, Julia? When did we decide to go on a date?" Justin sounded surprised. "Justin, I called you in the morning and we agreed to go out," Julia replied irritatingly. "Julia, what's wrong with you? We never talked about going on a date today. I have been telling you forever that you need a break from your work. See what it's doing to your health?" Justin screamed at her. Julia was taken aback. "What's happening to me?" she asked herself in disbelief. She had a sharp memory, but now she felt insane for not being able to distinguish between her memories and her imagination. She needed help and called her father. "Dad, I need your help. I think I'm going insane," she sobbed as she talked to her father. "Julia, you're not losing your mind. Relax and tell me everything from the beginning." Julia told everything to her father about how Justin had denied everything she said and how her things went missing. "Julia, darling, your husband is gaslighting you. I told you there was something off about this guy since the beginning," Simon told her. Julia couldn't believe her ears. "But Dad, why would he gaslight me? He has no motive," she asked Simon. "Okay, do one thing. Keep an eye on your husband. Maybe you'll get your answer," Simon replied. After talking to Simon, Julia searched for her diamond studs and bag in Justin's closet. She felt guilty about checking Justin's stuff, but she wanted to ensure he wasn't lying or hiding anything from her. Julia opened the closet, but couldn't find anything. She tried opening a few drawers, but they were locked. She sat down and gulped a glass of water to clear her mind. "Why would Justin gaslight me and make me doubt myself?" she asked. When Justin came home that night, Julia sat on her bed and read a book. "Honey, I'm sorry for my outburst today. I apologize for shouting at you, but you must take care of yourself," he said softly. Julia smiled and said, "I will go to a therapist tomorrow. Don't worry." She had planned to prove to Justin that she didn't imagine things. The next day, she went shopping and got herself a sparkly diamond ring. This time, she took photos of the ring and saved the receipt in a safe place. When Justin came home that night, Julia showed him the ring. "You have excellent taste, honey, but I suggest you give it to me, and I'll keep it safely in a locker," Justin suggested. "No, I bought this so I could wear it daily. I'm not keeping it in the locker," she replied. She kept the ring in her drawer and took a picture. When Justin was deeply asleep, she went outside and replayed their conversation, which she had secretly recorded on her phone. "I hope I am wrong about Justin," she said to herself and retired to her bed. A week later, she opened her drawer and was shocked to see that there was no ring. She called Justin. "Justin, have you seen the ring that I bought last week?" she asked hurriedly. "What ring? I haven't seen any ring." Justin looked confused as he replied. "Justin, the ring I showed you last week, and you suggested I keep it in a locker," Julia replied angrily. "Julia, you're making things up again," Justin retorted. Julia picked up her phone and showed Justin the pictures of the ring. She also played the recording of their conversation to prove to Justin that she wasn't making up stuff. While she played the recording, Julia noticed Justin's face color changing, as if he had been found guilty. "Oh, I must have forgotten. I'm sure you must have kept the ring in some other drawer. Don't worry, you'll find it," Justin said and left the room. Julia was heartbroken to know that Justin made her doubt herself and question her sanity. She decided to do something which she had never imagined in her wildest dreams. She opened her Facebook account and searched for Lily Hunt, Justin's ex-fiancée. She sent her a message on Facebook and requested her to share her number. Julia told her that she had married Justin and needed her help. Lily refused initially, but Julia convinced her she wouldn't take much of her time. Lily finally agreed and shared her number. Julia called her right away. "Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me, Lily." She thanked her sincerely. "It's okay, Julia. What do you want to talk about?" Lily asked her. "Lily, why did you break up with Justin? He told me that you had mental health issues and wanted a break. Is that true?" Julia asked. "Yes, Julia. Justin deteriorated my mental health and made me believe that I am an insane person and have a problem differentiating between imagination and reality," Lily responded. Julia felt her heart sinking. Justin was gaslighting her like he did to Lily. "I cried so many nights because Justin would never trust anything I said. He would take money from me, and he would call me nuts for making up stuff when I was asking for it back. He even humiliated me in front of his friends that I am a compulsive liar and have severe problems with my memory," Lily continued telling her. Julia listened intently. Then it struck her. "Lily, did he ever steal from you? Because a lot of my valuable stuff is missing," she asked Lily. "Yes, I never found my jewelry, watches, and even my laptop. When I asked Justin about my stuff, he would laugh at my face and say that I never owned any of these things. He made my life miserable. Hence, I decided to part ways and took therapy. It was then I learned how Justin was gaslighting me to take my money and shake my confidence so he could continue to use me." Lily told everything in detail to Julia. Julia felt like a complete fool for trusting and getting married to Justin, an emotional abuser. She decided to teach him a lesson he won't forget for eternity. She went to the bank and withdrew a hefty sum from her business account. Julia brought the money home and kept it in a metallic box in her drawer. "Julia, why have you brought so much cash at home? You know we have house help coming here every day. We cannot trust everyone," Justin asked her. "Don't worry. Dad will take it tomorrow morning. He needs to renovate the office and pay in cash to the designers," Julia explained to Justin. She looked at Justin and wondered what was going on in his head. "Justin, I am sleeping early today. I have taken some sleeping pills to help me sleep better. Good night," she told Justin. "Okay, Julia. Sleep well. I have some unfinished work, so I'll sleep late," Justin replied. Julia retired to her room. She closed her eyes and waited for Justin to open her drawer. "I'll teach him a lesson today." She waited for him to come into the room. After a few hours, Julia heard the bedroom creaking. She quickly closed her eyes and started snoring to make Justin believe she was deep asleep. Julia could feel Justin tiptoe in the room and open the cupboard. She heard the faint noise of someone opening her drawer. A few minutes later, she heard the bedroom door closing. She got up from her bed and waited for the showtime. A loud alarm started ringing from Julia's office. She smiled and ran to her office. She saw Justin baffled and her metallic box wide open. As soon as Justin saw Julia, he turned white, as if he had seen a ghost. "Julia, I came here as soon as I heard the alarm. Somebody must have broken into the house," he murmured. Julia looked at Justin and smiled. "And why would that thief take my money and come to the study, Justin? He should have fled instantly, don't you think?" she asked cunningly. Justin was speechless. He knew that his game was over. Julia tapped her mobile phone and played the CCTV footage of Justin leaving the office and entering the bedroom. "I knew you were stealing from me, but I needed proof, and here it is. Now, say I have made this up, and it is not real," Julia shouted at him. She went to the table and picked up the box. "I had installed CCTV cameras and an alarm in this box so that I can be alerted when you try to open it," she said. "Julia, I am sorry. I didn't steal it. I just wanted to borrow some money. I would have returned it to you." Justin tried to sound innocent. "I am done with you and your stories. Maybe you can entertain the NYPD with your creative stories," she laughed. Justin could hear the sound of the police patrol siren and knew that he had tried gaslighting the wrong woman this time. "Julia, I love you. Please, save me. I am sorry," Justin pleaded. "Justin, I might forgive you for stealing from me, but gaslighting me and disturbing my mental health is unforgivable. You must go to jail to learn that it's not right to play with people's emotions," Julia replied, and went to open the door to let the officers in and arrest the thief she had married.
Any minute now. Leah paced the room back and forth. She was restless. She glanced at the telephone from time to time, expecting a phone call. Any minute now. "Leah, will you please sit down?" Carol said, tired of seeing her daughter walking around the room. "Calm down, okay? We'll find him." "Calm down? Mom, can you hear yourself? How can I calm down when Dad is held captive by some ruthless criminals? We don't even know where he is," Leah replied, her eyes watery. "How can you be okay with this, Mom?" "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Carol indignantly replied. "It has been 5 years and you still can't forgive him. Can you at least try to act worried?" Leah now burst into tears. "How dare you?" Carol became tearful as well. "You have no idea what I'm going through right now. I may be mad at your father, but I still love him. Just like you, I am worried." The sudden ring of the phone echoed through the sparsely furnished house, startling the two women. Leah immediately dashed to receive the call, wiping the tears off her cheek. "Hello? Leah?" "Yes, speaking. Wait, Martin?" Leah recognized that voice. She was surprised that he had called her. "Martin? Your half-bro—" Carol interrupted, but before she could finish, Leah cut her off. "Mom, wait. He has the right to know. He is Dad's son anyway," Leah told her mom and immediately returned to the phone. "Listen, Martin, Dad has been kidnapped. He has been gone for 38 hours now. I've been waiting for the kidnappers to call. They may ask for ransom money." "Yes, the kidnappers called a few minutes ago," Martin cut in. "What? The kidnappers called you instead of us?" Yeah. Are you unaware that Dad used our telephone number as his home?" No. Never mind. What do the kidnappers want?" "Stop smoking, will you?" "Shut up, Ryan," Leah heard Martin and another guy arguing over the phone. "Sorry about that. Just my brother being nosy. Anyway, the kidnappers specifically asked for $1 million. They gave me the address, so it would be better if I give them the money and rescue our father." "Wait, what? $1 million? That is more than Dad's share with the company. Where on earth are we going to get that?" $1 million? Carol exclaimed. She has been eavesdropping on the conversation. "Listen here, little sis. You find ways to get that money within 48 hours and we'll do the rest. I have Brian here to help me." "Me? Come on, Mart." "Oh, and remember, don't tell the cops. The kidnappers specifically mentioned that," Martin said, ignoring Carol and his brother. "Where are we going to get that much money?" Leah asked her mom after ending the call with Martin. She fell to her knees in sadness. It seemed as though there was no way out. "They can help us find that much money, you know. Your half-brother can work," Carol suggested. "Mom, they've been relying on Dad's support for their living, and we only have 48 hours. "I know. I'll just tell the cops then, Leah said. We already reported that your father is missing, and didn't you hear what your half-brother said? Don't tell the police, Carol replied. Fine, I'll go and make a loan then. I'll use my house as collateral. Leah decided and went straight to her parents' room to look for something that might help her. In Leah's mind, it seemed impossible to get a loan of $1 million, and even if she did manage to get it within 48 hours, how were they going to pay it off? As she rummaged through her father's belongings, a flurry of thoughts consumed her mind, like ravens eating away at her peace. She came across papers, bills, company files, business cards, and surprisingly, a cigarette butt. Her father never smoked, as she knew him at least. On her way to the bank, she realized how much she loved her father. She is willing to give up her house for him. This was her time to show how much she loved him, a simple sacrifice for all the good things he had done for her, even though he kept a secret from her and her mother, a horrible secret that could have ended their happy family. She stopped by the police station and told them everything she and Martin had discussed over the phone. The police kept asking her where the location was and who her half-brother was so they could go to him and interrogate him about the site. Listen here, young lady. We need to know your father's location so we can rescue him. Don't worry, we will be careful. We also need the number the kidnapper called and the number the kidnappers used to call. We might track them and get more accurate information, the officer explained. His enormous stomach hung over his belt, making it look like he waddled whenever he walked around the station. Martin said the kidnapper called their telephone number as it was the home number that father is using, Leah timidly replied. You mean this number here? The police gave her the ID of her father. Yeah, you left it when you reported that he is missing. Wait, this is our telephone number, Leah said, perplexed. Her father used their number as his home number. Why would Martin lie? May I know the complete name of your brother so that I can put it here on our records? Oh, his name is Martin Edwards, she told the police. Martin Edwards? You mean this guy? The officer showed her a picture of a guy. A drawing of a bearded man and the word wanted was written on the top of the poster in red block letters. Leah's jaw dropped. She nodded as a response to the cop. It was him. It was Martin. This guy here, your brother is a fugitive. He is a notorious thief with his apprentice. He paused, giving Leah a moment to process the information he had just provided her. And then it struck her. Martin. The guy she thought she could trust. The guy that she always defended from her mother. The guy she ultimately accepted as her brother betrayed her. She never thought that Martin could do it to their father. No wonder he never stayed home. Leah told the police about his whereabouts. When they reached the small apartment, which looked like no one had lived in for years, the walls had paint peeling off, exposing moss maps. Leah grew more worried as every minute went by. She called her mother to give her an update. Hello, Mom. Martin is a fraud. She went on, telling her the whole story. That little... Oh, I was supposed to tell you that you can use our old house as collateral, but never mind that. Tell the cops to do everything to capture that criminal. Her mother was now enraged. Wait, that's right. Our old house. She ended the call and drove away. Leah hurriedly walked inside an old house. Its walls were covered in ivy, and its glass windows were shattered. The place looked abandoned entirely. It was not surprising that the house had been unoccupied. This was where she experienced hell. It was 5 years ago when it all began. It was her 18th birthday, and she was celebrating with her friends when she heard screams from her parents' room. It was her 18th birthday, and she was celebrating with her friends when she heard screams from her parents' room. She tiptoed to see what was happening and heard her mother shouting at her dad. How could you? Her mother shouted. When did you plan to tell me about this? Carol, please, I'm sorry, she heard her dad. He sounded like a dog that whined just before it was about to be kicked. He seemed lost for words. The pain from the past came in waves, consuming her. When she remembered that moment, everything around her froze, and all she could do was stand and stare ahead, lost for words. A loud bang brought her back to the present, and she tried to make the sound. It must be them, she thought. A burning desire to kill crept through her veins. She crept into the kitchen like a thief in the night and grabbed a knife. The least she could do was have something to protect herself. Slowly, she walked up the wooden stairs, almost tiptoeing, ensuring to avoid the creaky wooden floorboards. She didn't want to be heard and reached the second floor undetected. Breathing heavily, she looked for the source of the noise. All she could hear were whispers and muffled voices trying to shout. She heard it. The voices floated through the wall, and her ears perked when she heard her father's voice. All she wanted to do was go in and save her father. But did she have the courage to do so? The tiny room had 3 men. One looked older, with his face covered with a beard and a scar across his left cheek. The other looked fearful, as though he had not agreed to what was happening in the room. A piece of cloth was stuck inside his mouth, and the final man was tied to a chair in the corner of the room. "Oh, look who's here, Brian. It's my half-sister," the older guy said. "Hi, sis. You here to rescue Dad? Did you bring the money?" It was indeed them, her stepbrothers, and when she saw them, her mind jumped back many years to the moment her father introduced her stepbrothers. After her parents' argument, she learned more about her brothers when she stalked them. She hid at the back of her father's car to see where he was going. Unfortunately, her father saw her. "Leah, I know you're there. Come out now," her dad said. "I think it's time you meet them." "Meet who, Dad?" she asked. "You'll see. I love you and your mom always, but do you promise to forgive me? I'm about to show you a mistake I made 13 years ago when I thought I couldn't get your mother pregnant." They walked inside a small apartment. Leah noticed the house was sparsely furnished, and there were old toys in one corner of the room, unlike her new shiny ones. There was a beautiful young woman the same age as her mom, and 2 little boys. They hid behind their mother, who was seated at the table. "Leah, I want you to meet Martin, your half-brother, and Brian, his brother." From then on, she was on good terms with her half-brother's family, even though her mother was skeptical about it. Brought back to reality with Martin's cough, she looked at him angrily and spoke. "How dare you, Martin? I trusted you. We trusted you." "I should have listened to my mother," Leah shouted at him. "Oh, come on. You are so gullible, dear sister. You see, Father made us feel less than people when he tried to hide us from the world. He gave you and your witch of a mother all the attention. He never looked as happy with us as he is with you." Martin started while walking around his father's chair. "My mother died with a heavy heart. She died begging your father to love her. She wanted us to have a good future, but our father's financial support was never enough. Come on, little sis, just give us the money, and we'll all live happily ever after," Martin continued. "So now you want us to strip ourselves of everything we have? We won't have anything left for us," Leah reasoned, trying to buy some time. "No, of course not. You will still have your father with you," Martin sarcastically pointed to his father. "I'm sure you'll get along with him just fine. Now give me the money." "No, Martin, I don't have anything for you," Leah said, keeping her eye on Martin. "But they do." She looked toward the entrance, where a squad of cops burst in. Following her were cops loaded with guns. She tipped the police before she went inside the house that this may be the place that held her father captive. It was these 2 culprits that took her father. Martin tried to jump out of the broken window at the back, but before he could do anything, one of the cops already had his hands on him. The 2 guys didn't have a choice but to surrender. Handcuffed, Martin threw Leah a look of hate and anger. She walked over to her father and untied his hands, saying, "Don't worry, Dad. We are safe now. Let's go home." Leah, with her father, rode home. There, waiting at the door, was Carol. Tears rolled down her rosy cheeks as she ran and hugged her husband and Leah. "I missed you. I don't know what I'd do without you. You got us so worried," Carol told her husband while he held her in a warm embrace. "You are so brave, dear," Leah heard her father speak to her. "I love you." It all seemed surreal. She couldn't help but feel like she was on cloud 9. "I love you too, Dad, Mom," she said. A wave of relief washed over her, and all she wanted to do was eat peanut butter and jam sandwiches with her dad while they watched a Disney movie by the fireplace. This morning, Old Brown woke up earlier than usual. For some time, he smiled because he dreamed of his former life, his big cozy house, wonderful garden, and sweet wife. Previously, Patrick Brown was a happy family man, lived in a decent place, and peacefully lived out his old age. But at one moment, everything changed. A terrible fire destroyed his house, and he lost his wife. Only Brown and his faithful dog Loki survived in that fire. Patrick's legs were severely burned, and he could only walk on crutches. The poor dog also got burned and was now very afraid of fire. Unfortunate Loki was shaking even when the old man would light a match to light his pipe. Patrick often regretted that he did not leave with his wife. It was so hard and bitter for him now to exist. He recently turned 72 and often wondered what lay ahead of him. After the fire, Patrick faced human injustice and callousness. The insurance company refused to reimburse the damage completely, and the old man had no one to turn to. All the many friends who often visited the Browns suddenly turned their backs on Patrick. Previously, Mr. Brown helped many, but when he needed help, it suddenly turned out that he was utterly alone. Patrick had a son, but communication with him was interrupted long before the accident, and even after the fire, his son blamed him for not being able to save his mother. Now, Oldie Brown lived in an abandoned trailer in a small forest near the town. No one lived nearby. The old man was alone and talked only to his dog. They had taken this dog from the shelter with his wife, so Loki reminded Patrick of his beloved wife. Patrick Brown remembered all the recent events, and the smile faded from his face. The day started with nothing good. His legs poorly hurt after the fire. The sun shone from the early hours, and strong heat waves began to heat up the metallic trailer. There was stuffiness all around the old man. The old man tried to move his legs. It still hurt to move. Loki immediately approached him and buried his muzzle into his palm. The dog was worried about his owner. Patrick stroked the dog and sat up in bed with difficulty. On that day, he was going to the city to send another letter to his son. The old man hoped that his son was just on a long trip, and one day he would read his father's letters and come to him. Brown was also worried about his dog. If he died, then what would happen to the dog? Because he would disappear. Old Brown cooked a simple meal and shared it with the dog. Patrick dressed in decent clothes and took a bag in which he put a letter and some money to buy food in the city. The dog always accompanied Patrick when he went to the town. It went with the owner on this day, too. The path was long and ran through the forest. It was challenging to move on crutches on a grumpy road. His old wounds began to bleed, but Old Brown tried not to pay attention to them. He needed to send a letter. The sun was merciless. Patrick looked at the sky. There was not a cloud. The old man was already far away from his trailer when he saw a small group of young people. Brown habitually ordered the dog to walk close to him. Young people saw an old man on crutches with disfigured legs and a dog with visible burn marks from the fire. For some reason, they thought it was amusing. Enticing each other, the guys made jokes about the old man's appearance and made fun of his dog. But Patrick did not answer, pretended not to hear their ridicule. He only wanted to quickly pass this company and reach the city. One of the guys got so cocky that he pushed the old man. Patrick Brown lost his balance and fell straight into the hot dust on the road. Faithful Loki pounced on the offender and bit him by the hand. Getting angry with this, the young people began to kick the dog and then attack the old man. Patrick yelled at them not to hit the dog, but the guys didn't listen. The old man covered his head with his hands, receiving blows to his body. A terrible wave of horror and resentment filled his heart, because Patrick had done nothing wrong to them, and he might not be able to send his letter to his son. Not even the pain of his bleeding foot could compare to that feeling of being lost in his pain. After beating the old man and his dog up, the guys picked up and shook out Brown's bag. A few dollars and a letter fell out from it. The young people took the money, and they threw the letter and the bag far into the bushes. Then the young lads laughed with joy and left. Old Brown lay in the dust for a long time, gathering his strength. Finally, he raised his head and softly called out to Loki. The dog was also beaten up for good. She limped over to her master and began to lick his face, whimpering softly. Loki felt guilty for not protecting his master. Brown stroked the dog, comforting her, and said that Loki was not to blame for anything. These young people were disasters, just as merciless and without human feelings. Brown asked the dog to look for the letter. It was unlikely that the guys had taken it. The dog understood the command and began searching. Finally, her joyful barking was heard from the bushes. Loki found the letter. The old man sat down and began looking for crutches. One was closer, the other lay far away. Brown crawled up to the first crutch. Loki saw that the old man was looking for a crutch and dragged the second of them to him. Patrick examined his crutches and thanked God that the young people had not broken them. Loki led the old man to his things. Patrick struggled to pick up the letter and bag from the ground. The bag was all dirty, and the letter was crumpled and also had dusty traces. But the old man did not give up the idea of going to the city. He did not want to give up and return to the trailer. This letter contained his hope. Patrick Brown and his dog walked on through the forest, which was getting thicker. There was an unusual silence. Birds usually would sing, but this time they were silent. This alarmed the old man. He thought trouble might be ahead. After all, the sun was beating down so hard that it could start a forest fire. Suddenly, Loki began to whine loudly and asked to go home. He grabbed the old man by the clothes with his teeth and pulled him in the opposite direction. After a few feet, Brown realized why the dog behaved restlessly, and he smelled burnt. A moment later, the old man saw intense smoke ahead and flashes of fire. There was a fire in front of them. Loki was very scared. It already knew the fire and was very scared. The dog began to tremble. Its legs began to be removed from fear. The old man petted the dog and went back to the trailer. A menacing crack and the terrible silence of the forest accompanied their path. There was more and more smoke, and it began to clog into their lungs, pinching their eyes. The old man was in a hurry, and because of that, his every step on crutches along the time went astray, and it turned out to move slowly. Brown feared not so much for himself as for his faithful dog. After a while, when the smoke filled almost the entire space in the forest, the old man could no longer walk his way back, and the fire got closer to them. There was a terrible dryness in his throat, and the old man regretted that he had not thought to take at least a bottle of water with him. His eyes were watering from the smoke. At some point, the old man realized he could not get out, but it was necessary to save the dog and send his last letter to his son. Patrick Brown leaned against a tree and breathed heavily. He called his dog and began to tell her to run to the city. Loki was an intelligent dog and would be able to get out. The old man tore off the handles from the bag and tied the letter around the dog's neck so the paper could be seen enough. Patrick hoped people would see this handmade collar and take the letter. Brown looked directly into the eyes of his dog and told her to run to the post office, so he repeated the word mail several times. Loki ran away from the old man, whining and returning to the owner over and over again. Loki was afraid to leave him there alone. The old man waved his hand, indicating that the dog should run faster. Patrick looked at his dog for a long time. He sat down near the tree and dutifully waited for either his death or salvation. He started falling into oblivion and saw his former life again. Everything there was flooded with light. Happy laughter was heard, his wife was still alive, and he was young and full of strength. A terrible crack woke the old man. The huge old tree that stood nearby, unable to withstand the power of the fire, began to fall. The heavy trunk broke thinner trees, flames danced on the bark and gnawed at the thin branches. The old man watched in horror as the fire got closer and closer. Healed burns ached even more. His body still remembered the fire that had deprived him of his former life. And now the fire has returned as if it came for another portion of his life and wanted to take the old man himself. Patrick Brown saw the inevitability of disastrous fire. If he had not met those young folks, he would have reached the city by now and been safe. But alas, he lost a lot of time and was beaten by them and could not move so fast that time. The old man no longer understood whether he felt the bitterness of the acrid smoke or whether it was human cruelty that was eating away his soul. Brown had one hope, that his Loki would remain alive and kind people would pick it up or even return to the shelter. Anything was better than dying there in the fire. And if you were lucky, Loki would be able to take his letter to the post office. The old man wanted that letter to reach his son so that he would know what happened to his parents. The fire was already surrounding the old man as if it was mocking him. Now he was pouring heat on his face. He stepped back, obeying the air currents. Suddenly, through the crackling, a loud barking was heard. Brown immediately recognized the voice of his dog. But why did Loki return? After all, he had to flee to the city. The old man began to cry. He realized that now the faithful dog would die with him, and with both of them, the hope of passing the letter to his son would die. The bark was getting closer. The old man wanted to shout for Loki to run away, leaving him there, but instead of words, only a wheeze came out of his mouth. Strong smoke had already intercepted his throat, not allowing him to say a word. Right through the fire, overcoming his fear, Loki jumped and began to lick Brown's face, and again he began to bark loudly as if calling for someone. 2 men followed the dog through the fire. They were people from the forest, possibly lumberjacks. They picked up the old man and began to carry him out of the woods. Behind them, wagging his tail, Loki was running. The dog was happy that it was able to help his master. The old man silently cried. He did not even have the strength to thank his saviors. The lumberjacks took the old man straight to the city post office. Brown shook hands with them and thanked them in a low, smoke-hoarse voice. And so, Patrick Brown ended up at the post office. With trembling hands, he took the letter from his dog and dropped it into the mailbox.